Hello and welcome back to the Long Island Railroad Montauk Branch. Today I'm going to do something a little different, something I've never done before, and that is a layout overview to bring everyone up to speed on the design and operation philosophy of my railroad. I go over it all in a fair amount of detail in the first 7 episodes that I filmed, but I'm going to summarize it here and bring everyone up to date on the changes that I've made since then. So we're modeling the Long Island Railroad Montauk Branch, which even though Montauk is at the very eastern end of Long Island, the Montauk Branch begins at the western end of Long Island, near Long Island City. All the cars for the Long Island Railroad, for the freight operation, come over on car barges, just like this one. Now that makes the operational philosophy of the railroad quite easy in that basically the barge is staging. Cars come over on the barge, get sorted, distributed to industries, and then cars get picked up from the industries and put back on the barge. And that's how it works, in and out. In real life, there is some interchange with the New Haven Railroad, and I have modeled that a little bit. But by and large, all the freight traffic for the Long Island Railroad comes over on these barges. So the cars, once they arrive, in my world, get sorted here at Blissville Yard. In real life, it's a little bit more complicated. So Blissville Yard, as you can see, has 4 tracks. The real yard is double-ended, but mine is single-ended. So whatever. The leftmost tracks are for cars that have just arrived from the barge. They get sorted onto those 2 tracks. The right 2 tracks are for cars that are due to depart on the next barge. So they get sorted onto those 2 tracks. Now, I'm not hard and fast on how cars get sorted, but that's what I try to do, just to keep it straight in my mind. And the railroad also has this small engine servicing / rip track right here. So this is where I store the engines when they're not in use. So as you can see, I use the Digitrax DCS52 Zephyr. I like it. The only problem is it doesn't do the high CVs, the ones that you have to encode. But I am able to get around that to a certain extent using JMRI, which I run on my wife's old PC down there. It's really old and slow, but it does the job. So the layout is divided into basically 4 areas. The first area is called Kearney Sightings, and it's all along this wall right here. There are 2 industries, Block & Guggenheimer, an actual industry that I've modeled prototypically. You can go on Google Maps and check it out. It looks just like this, other than I have reversed it, like mirror imaged it, for various reasons that I'm not going to go into right now. That building is suppositional. It's just an abandoned warehouse to fill a spot. The next industry along is Frockenstachel, which is also modeled. The building in the background is prototypical. The cement plant is not. That's suppositional. That I had that elsewhere in the layout that I decided to remodel, so I moved the cement part here, and it works out just fine. Actually, I like it better over here, but it's just not prototypical. But I've kind of abandoned the whole I want to be prototypical philosophy and gone over to I want to do what I want and have fun philosophy, which is why I started remodeling the railroad not too long ago. And right here is my one grade crossing. This is Greenpoint Avenue, and it intersects right here with Railroad Avenue, which is the street that fronts along the fascia. Those are both real street names, and they're where they really are, prototypically. This is an interesting grade crossing in that as late as 1971, it was still manually operated by Fred, the operator there, and I've tried to model this as accurately as possible, even down to the crossing gates, which I had to make by hand because the kind of gate they used here is not available commercially. Someday I will try to automate these, as in, I'm not going to have it automated such that there's like detectors and stuff like that. So I'll just have a switch that will make it go up and down instead of having to do it by hand. So that was Kearney Sightings. The next area is called Blissville, which is This is also all prototypical, except for the track plan, which is in reality really complicated for what it did. And since I didn't have the room, I narrowed it all down or compressed it into just one long siding. So here in Blissville, First Industry, which is actually right there, adjacent to Greenpoint Avenue, is Carbona. It's in what's called the old Andrews Lead Building. Carbona made a cleaning agent based on carbolic acid, which is not good stuff. Next along is Stoll Metal. The building should actually be twice as big as it is, but I didn't feel like it because it wasn't that interesting, because I wanted room for this building, which is Allied Extruders, which is a bit of a futuristic building since it didn't actually exist until the early 70s. But you can go onto Google Maps and take a look at it, and it's just such an awesome building, I had to have it. So the next building along that siding is Van Eiderstein, which makes chicken feed. And they did a lot of other stuff that I won't go into. If you want to know about it, you can review my earlier videos. And then on this side of the main line, I'm calling it that. It's not really the main line, because after this switch, this one right here, the CTC ends, and I have a little sign that says it somewhere. There it is. And that is prototypical. There's a sign that says that exactly there, and everything else is dark, unsignaled territory. So anyway, this is now a team track because it fits nicely in this area and you can see over it. There used to be a building here that kind of blocked the view, and I moved that building and put the team track here instead. Finally, in Blissville is this somewhat representational, actually it's completely representational, oil facility, fuel facility. After Van Eiderstein, there was hundreds of yards frontage-wise of fuel tanks, and it's all represented just by these two little fuel tanks. They were not rail served, so this industry is not rail served either. All the fuel apparently came in by barges, so I have this barge here unloading the fuel. Next along the line are these bridges, which are suppositional. Now that there are plenty of bridges like this on the Montauk Branch, but there aren't any in this particular location. But I put this here, because I thought it looked cool, and it's also a scenic break between Blissville, down there, and Laurel Hill, up here. Now, physically, they were a little further apart than this represents, but not much, not much. Now, here's where the prototypicalness kind of all went out the window. In the first iteration, come on, focus back there. There we go. Prototypicalness went out the window because as I progressed down the route, there was less and less information on the buildings and what they looked like at the time. And before, there was some prototypical buildings and some that were freelance, and I don't know, I just got tired of it and I didn't like necessarily the way it worked or operated, so I kind of threw the prototypicalness out the window and freelanced it. So the industry in the back that starts there under the bridge and goes all the way to the end of the building right there is all cantilever paper, which is not there in reality, but it is here. And it didn't look like that. Basically, well, no. It looked like, you see the top level of the building in the corner? That's what cantilever paper looked like. So at least I maintain that, but all the rest is suppositional. And it's served by a single siding. The building in the front is Marlin Warehouse. It was on the waterfront. This is only part of it. I didn't model the rest of it because it would have been too hard. The siding for it was actually on the other side of the building, but I moved it to the waterfront side. And over here, still in Laurel Hill, is Atlas Imports, which was an industry in this general vicinity. I have no idea what it looked like, but this building fit the area and it looks cool, so there it is. In the background, same story, General Chemical. No idea what it looked like, no idea what it did. All I know is the name and that it was in this vicinity. You know, I mentioned this earlier. The track in the background is the New Haven Railroad interchange track. The track goes inside that building and runs underneath of that building all the way to the end. And I actually have it on a ramp underneath the layout, which I'll show you here. So there's the ramp. The cars come down the ramp, and then I can lower this end of the ramp so that it's easier to reach in, and I can pull the cars off. And then if I want to pick something up from New Haven Railroad, I can put them on the track from underneath. That way I don't have to move any of the buildings around on top. And it works okay. If I were to do it again, I'd probably think really hard about trying to figure out a different way to do it. So, by the way, this whole waterfront area is all new. The water itself, I put that in and converted everything that was here before into a waterfront area, which I happen to like boats. So more boats, more better. Boats and cranes. This barge I actually made based on a pattern in, I think, the October 22 issue of Metal Railroader. Just based on the pattern, I had to change it a little bit. But anyway, this isn't a layout update. This is an overview. So this is the Phelps Dodge Refinery, the beginning of it. I decided I tore out everything that was in here before and I converted it, or I am in the process of converting it, to the Phelps Dodge Refinery, which is an actual industry. Phelps Dodge was the number one freight customer for the Long Island Railroad, and it did follow directly on the heels of Laurel Hill. So this railroad it's compressed, but it's really pretty close to being prototypical as far as distances between industries and how it's set up, which I like. I like not having to pretend that there's actually a mile between these two industries that we just crossed over in 6 inches. So that's good. This area right here is the receiving area for the copper anodes, that all arrive on barge. Some of them arrive by a train car, so that's why I have a sighting here too. But the majority of them arrive by a barge, and they get loaded onto a narrow gauge railway, which is completely authentic. Phelps Dodge Refinery did have a narrow gauge railway, and I'm trying to show it to you back here. You can see that there's little cars with the copper anodes on them, ready to be transported to the actual copper refinery area. And next on the Phelps Dodge sighting list, it's all of one industry, but multiple sightings, is the copper ore refinery. In addition to refining the copper anodes, they actually refined copper ore. It's not raw, it's been processed a little bit, but doesn't matter. It arrives in hopper cars, so it has its own place to unload them. And the area in the track in the back is for coke, to fire the furnace. Now I don't know if if copper ore needs coke to be refined, but I'm just going to assume it does. But it's not a given. The industry in the back there, or just that wall, is just there. It's just there to take up space, and I put that the conveyor there for just to have something there. I think it looks neat, and it uses up all those buildings that I spent a long time making, and I didn't want them to go to waste. In the foreground is where the coal arrives. The Phelps Dodge Refinery received all of its coal for its furnace by a barge. So this is right on the water, and I will get a barge for coal soon. And it gets loaded into its own set of narrow gauge cars right there. And you can see my little narrow gauge engine in the background. I am working on this area as this video is being made, and this is as far as we got, because the switches are rarely in stock. There's only one place in the country that I know of that carries them. It's Iron Planet Hobbies. And here's Clementine. Hi, baby. And they're currently out of the right-hand switches that I need. So once I get those switches in, I will finish it. I'll need 2 more, and then it'll be done. Further along the line in the Phelps Dodge installation, Phelps Dodge facility, facility is a good word. This building represents the loading of copper cathodes onto the freight cars. Now, most of the copper that Phelps Dodge makes, they roll themselves and make large copper ingots and wire. Some of those cathodes get shipped out to other people who want to make their own ingots and wire, I guess. And that's as far as we've gotten on Phelps Dodge. The things left to do are down here. There's going to be a large U-shaped building. The base of the U will be at the very end there. That will it'll receive general supplies on the nearer track, and it will ship out ingots and wire on the far track, and maybe some on the near track, who knows. There'll be the overhead crane there is going to get turned and go across the tracks between the two buildings, the two wings of the building, so it can carry ingots and whatnot back and forth. And then the end of the building, the U-shaped, the base of the U will go up and over the track, so it'll be a bridge for the narrow gauge railway. Sorry about checking the camera. Those additional pieces of straight track will come down. One of them will go into the building for the delivery of the ingots, and the other will go behind the building and up and over and into the facility, or a new building that's going to go back there for coal dumping for the furnace that will power the rest of the facility. It'll be separate from the coke-fired furnace in the building down there. And just to be clear, I am making all that up. I have no idea how it worked in real life. All I know is that ingots and the coal were both unloaded via barge and transferred around by the narrow gauge railway. How the rest of the refinery buildings were set up, I don't know. I am just taking what I know about copper refining and shoehorning it into the space that I have available. Just being clear about that. And the final thing I wanted to mention is there's Clementine. Hi, baby. The bridge here is not for continuous running, although I could use it for that if I wanted. It is basically a switching lead for both of the passing sidings on the layout. You can see that there's a runaround here, starts here and goes down to the other end of this side of the layout. And sometimes I need to, use this area as a switching lead for that siding. And there's also a siding over here in Kearney sidings that starts right there and goes all the way around over to the other side of the layout over there, kind of between Van Eiderstein and Allied extruders. So when I use it, it gets used as a switching lead, and very rarely will I run a train just straight across. If I'm doing it, it's because I'm lazy and I don't want to back all the way down from here all the way to the other end of the yard. So I'll just take a shortcut. But it's definitely not prototypical, but it is very useful. Operations on the Long Island Railroad are controlled by this spreadsheet that I programmed using Visual Basic for applications that I happen to be good at. I know it's not necessarily a skill to be proud of, but there you go. Let me click on something there. Every car that I have on the layout is listed over here, and the program keeps track of its status. And I can use these buttons over here to create jobs. I can create a partial job. I'm not going to click any of the buttons because I have something in progress. Or a full job. Partial job, I can select how many cars I want to handle. The full job, every car in the yard that's available to be distributed to an industry is used, and every car at an industry that's available for pickup is used. So that's what I'm doing right now, because see, this button is highlighted. That means it's in progress. So that involved 24 cars. You can see, if you can see the numbers. So all 24 of those cars are on my current switch list, which is what I'm doing in my series of videos right now. And we're almost done. So when it's complete, I push this button and it updates the status and location of all these cars. It all does it automatically and randomly so that I never know what I'm going to do next. which is what makes it fun. So once I have the spreadsheet create the train order or the operation, I have it output all that data and import it into this Word document, which is also managed with Visual Basic for applications. This Word document is a combination form 19, which you can see up here on the top, and also a switch list. So every action that the spreadsheet selected is output to this worksheet, or not this worksheet, this switch list, which is what I print out and take into the other room. And this all sounds complicated, and writing the program took a while, but I can do everything I just suggested or just described in a minute, if that. I mean, the thing that takes the most time is going over and turning the printer on and then printing this out, and then I can just take it right into the train room, which is just a few feet away, and I'm ready to go. All right, if you'll excuse the use of Google Maps, this is an orientation view. You can see that down here, see where my pointer is at the lower left, this is Greenville Yard. This is where all the cars come from. They go up through here, past Manhattan, and go right about here. And back in the old days, the car floats all arrived right here. We're at the current site of Gantry Plaza State Park. There were four gates, four aprons for unloading cars. Oh, see, you can see right there it says Long Island. That's off of one of the current gantries. There used to be a yard, a small sorting yard right here. It's gone, completely gone now. From there the cars went over to here, which is, it might have been this yard. The Yard A was what the Long Island Railroad used. The rest of this was Sunnyside Yard for the serving the Pennsylvania Railroad and their passenger trains that went in and out of Grand Central Station. So, moving down a little bit, we can see that this yard is currently for the Long Island Railroad passenger terminal. It splits, part of it goes this way and part of it goes this way. And this right here is what's known as the Montauk Cutoff, because this is the Montauk Branch down here that follows the Newton Creek, and that's what we're modeling. So we pick up right about here. Let's zoom in there. See, this is Blissville Yard, or Bliss Yard as it was called. This is Greenpoint Avenue. This is basically the Carbona building, Andrews Lead. Here's Stoll Metal, and this right here is Allied Extruders. This is Van Eiderstein. And you can see in this area over here was where the rest of Van Eiderstein was, but it's all gone now. And right in this area is where all the tank farms were. This particular building is the real location of Marlin Warehouse. And then right after Penny Bridge here, this is Laurel Hill Boulevard, so this is Laurel Hill, this area right here. General Chemical was somewhere in this area, and as was Atlas Imports, somewhere in this area. Maybe even further down. I'm not sure. All I know is a name. This, all through here, from the bridge all the way down to roughly this area, was the Phelps Dodge Refinery. Let's go to satellite view, and you can even see down here the tracks of the old Phelps Dodge narrow gauge railroad. This little slice of land right here is apparently still owned by whoever owned Phelps Dodge, and they have yet to do anything at all about these tracks. All the rest has been sold to somewhere else. I think it's pretty cool that you can still see these tracks. Okay, and that's it. So you can see that prototypically I follow the line fairly closely as far as where it is and how far apart things are. And one more thing, just as a side note. Back in the old days, in this area just south of Long Island City's yard, the Brooklyn East District Terminal had a tiny little railroad that all it served was they had like a large transload facility right here, and then there used to be a big giant sugar refinery right here, and it served the sugar refinery. It had its own apron and its own car floats that came in right in this area, and it's been completely obliterated. There's no sign of it left. But humorously, or not humorously, but interestingly, it did not connect at all to the Long Island Railroad, even though it's literally feet away. Okay, that's it. I hope you learned something or were at least entertained. We're going to end this video with a shot of the Meadow wax, one of my favorite things. I did a whole video on the Meadow wax, which unfortunately no one has watched. It makes me sad. But that's it. Thank you for watching, and see you next time on the Long Island Railroad Montauk Branch.